Hello there, personal and professional development enthusiasts. Today I have Griselle Paz with me. Welcome to the show, Griselle.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Griselle is a career coach and a HR professional. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, everybody. I'm Griselle Paz, and I am the owner of Growing Alive Coaching. I have been in talent acquisition for over 20 years. I've been helping Fortune 500 companies with bringing in the talent that they need. And I have also been helping in terms of talent development, helping people move forward in their careers.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Griselle. Now, Griselle is a career coach now, and she's gonna tell us about career development, how to have a growth plan, and how to have that conversation with your manager. And she'll be giving us tips about how to grow in our professional lives. Griselle, with that, what is career development?
It's basically having a plan. It's always very important to be intentional about your career steps, what you want to do next, and also making sure that you are connecting with the correct people that can help advance you in your career.
Why is having a career development plan important?
It's super important because if you don't have it, then you're leaving your career up to chance. So you might take a job just because you need a job to cover your expenses and pay your bills, that sort of thing. And you might go from one thing to the next and not really have anything in place. So what happens is you lose a lot of time and you lose a lot of momentum. The strides that you could be making in your career and the advancement that you could have, it gets tripped up if you're going from one place to the next. So it's important to research companies, have an idea of what your goal is, research the companies that you want to go into, research the type of positions that are out there, so that you can decide how you want to develop that career track. Otherwise, you're just winging it.
That's a great point you were making about being intentional and about building with a purpose. So I know a lot of people do get into jobs out of necessity, obviously, and they move from one thing to the other. Just like you said, they don't have that momentum, they don't have that compound effect of doing the same thing, getting better, and of growing within their field. So when you change jobs, when you change fields, you inevitably lose that, unfortunately. And that's such a shame. So it's a great point you were making. Thank you for sharing that. That's really valuable.
It doesn't mean that you have to stay always doing the same exact thing, but at least if you have a plan, you can then start building on some other skills that you might be able to use in other areas, so that when there are other opportunities in the company or within the whatever your chosen career is, then you can shift and you can repackage those skills to fit another role that might be the next role that gets you to the next level.
So when we talk about this, you mentioned career planning. What
Mhm.
is career planning?
Career planning is, if I had to give anybody any advice, I would say, for example, in some companies, they lay out exactly what a career path within their company could be. I've been in certain Fortune 500 companies where they had, for example, for sales, they had a person could start as an inside sales account manager, then an outside sales account manager, then a regional manager, then a director of sales, etc. So it was very clear the path was already set. But most companies don't have that. So it's important that you lay that out for yourself and take a look and research what is a typical path, like the one I just described, and then go ahead and figure out how you should go about moving forward. Now, a lot of times nowadays, a typical tenure at a job is anywhere between 1 to 3 years. I personally recommend 3 years in one role in one company and then move on to the next. If you stay at one company for 1 year, you basically don't have enough time to either learn or make an impact. So the 3 year mark works out very well. It also lets the employer know that you're not a job hopper, and also gives you the opportunity to show the impact that you've had at that particular role. And then it prepares you for the next one.
That's so true, because delivering an impact does take time and getting results take time as well. So you're certainly right there. Now, when we talk about career development planning, it's interesting that you said that most companies don't have this career path mapped out that they can take you through during your interview process. Would you be interested in that? And you should have this for yourself. So when somebody, let's say a graduate, gets into a position without having the knowledge or the experience, what it might be like being a manager or a director, how can they possibly envision or know if that's what they want to build towards to, or if that's what they want to achieve even?
The best thing is to ask. You would be surprised how wonderful people are and how willing they are to share information, especially if you take an interest in what they do. So, my best advice to someone coming out of college or out of the university is to speak to a director, someone who's already in that role, whether it's a director or a VP. Sometimes those people are very busy, so it's difficult to get their attention, but it doesn't hurt to ask. A lot of companies have mentor programs. So sometimes there's a list of people who have volunteered to mentor other people within the company. And so that's the best thing to do, is to take advantage of that and then just ask for an interview. Ask them that you are interested in what they do, how they got there, you would like to learn the path that they took, that sort of thing. And then that allows you to learn exactly the parameters of how to get to where you want to go, but also full of information about the landscape in the company. Corporate landscape in each company is completely different. So when you are able to speak to someone and have a mentor, they can teach you the ropes. They can tell you who the key people in the company are, what some of the key objectives of the company is, and then you can align yourself to the projects that are important to the company. And that is really going to give you some visibility.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of young people who are aspiring to get into certain jobs will find that really valuable. Now, if somebody has already gotten into a job without actually thinking ahead about their career development path, what would you advise them? How can they have that conversation with their manager, or how can they get more information about what's possible and whether it is right for them or not?
The first thing is to have that conversation with the manager. A lot of people think that they can't ask the question, or they think that is probably not a good idea because they think they're just supposed to be happy with the job that they have. But it's not about that. There are some opportunities to speak to managers and say, this is where I want to go. This is the things that I would like to do. I would like to develop in this specific area. Most companies have a yearly review. So the idea is that you have to be the one to take accountability for your career development. Nobody's going to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to map out your career for you. That's not going to happen. You are accountable for that. You have to take action. You have to be the one that's disciplined enough to do that. However, because there are those quarterly reviews, there are goals that you set for the year. And then each quarter, you work towards the different milestones that will get you to that part of the goal. So the idea is that you do that on a regular cadence, because sometimes when you're at work, you get very busy with work, the emails, and so on. And sometimes you just don't even work on your career. My best advice is don't just be a worker bee, because some people think, oh, I'm just going to keep my head down and I'm going to work hard and they're going to notice. My managers are going to notice. My directors are going to notice. No, they're not. They're not going to notice. They're just going to rely on you and they're going to give you more work to do. And if you're not vocal and if you don't speak out, you will never stand out. As I said, align yourself to the projects that are important. Make sure that you're being vocal, make sure that you're networking with the right people, and make sure that you're being consistent in terms of achieving your goals. Make your training a priority. Most companies have a lot of learning opportunities, and most of them are online. Most of them are video on demand, where you can learn whatever it is that you want. There's a lot of LinkedIn learnings that companies offer, whether it's for becoming a project manager or a technical certification. So I would say to leverage that as much as you possibly can.
Thank you. That's another really great piece of advice there for people who are already in a job and they looking to advance in their careers. When I looked at your resume, I saw that obviously you've been in human resources, specifically in recruitment for many years, including Big Four, Deloitte as well. Now, if somebody wants to get into the human resources field, what does the career development path looks like in HR?
I think it depends on what area of HR the person is interested in, because there's lots of different areas. Compensation is a big area. That's an area that I think is always in demand because companies are always trying to figure out what the market is paying for specific skills. It comes into play, especially in sales, where you might have a base salary plus a commission portion plus a customer satisfaction portion to that, and all of those things come together. So compensation is one thing. Learning and development is another area. There is the recruitment area. There is operations. Anything that has to do with deployment of technologies that are the tools and the systems that people use within a company. Those are really important because everybody's going to use them. And to do sometimes a global deployment of technology is a really big deal. It has to work, and it has to work because it has to work across the globe. So operations is another area. So it really depends on what the person wants to do. Sometimes people are involved in things like employee relations, which is basically working with the employees, working on their development, making sure that they're going to be successful. There are just so many different sides of HR that I don't think that there is a typical path. Most people in HR start off as a generalist and then specialize. It's also good to get a certification if that's at all possible. Some companies do offer their employees the opportunity to get certified.
As a HR specialist?
Yes, there is the Society of Human Resources Management that offers a certification. And it basically says that if you're certified, you understand the basic concepts.
It's a great piece of information there. So the Society of Human Resource Management, if somebody wants to get more information on that. Now, if somebody would like to develop a career in human resources within recruitment that you specialize in, so what's the typical career development path within recruitment?
So within recruitment, people generally start off as sourcers. Sourcers are basically researchers. They look for the candidates. They look for the people that have the skills. And sometimes they're skills that are harder to find than other. And also it depends on the industry. In certain industries, scientific industries like pharmaceutical, it's a little bit more involved to find the right types of people. Because if I'm looking for maybe an oncologist, they have to have certain skills that a standard MD might not have. With that, the sourcers research, they look in different places. They work with organizations, they look on LinkedIn for people, they work with networking. Basically, they build pipelines so that when a new position opens, they already have some of the people in there. From sourcing, they'll go to being a recruiter. One other path is that a person might start as a coordinator. What a recruiting coordinator does is that they arrange all the interviews, they send out the background checks, they do all those kinds of things, make sure that the candidates get their immigration forms, those types of things. And sometimes from the coordinator role, they go to the sourcer role. And from the sourcer role, they go to the recruiter role. And then from the recruiter role, they go to either different areas. They can become specialized as an executive recruiter or a diversity recruiter. And then from there, they can move on to either being a manager, managing a team, and then a director and a senior director. And a lot of times within those positions, they can also branch out to other things like becoming an HR program manager, for example, where they're managing large projects or large deployments. That's typically what you will see.
That's very interesting to see the entire career path laid out in front of us. If somebody is interested about getting into recruitment or HR specifically, it would be very helpful for them, I imagine. Now, as a senior manager in recruitment or HR, how much influence do you have on employer branding?
I think a lot of it depends on the company. I worked at a tech company and they were fantastic about including the employees. They didn't have to be a manager. So I remember specifically they were trying to select like a little jingle, the audio portion. When you hear any company like Dell or any of these other companies, Cisco, et cetera, they have a specific sound, right? In this particular tech company, they asked the entire employee population to vote on what that would be. And that was part of the employer branding. In another company that I worked with, we worked very closely in HR with marketing. And we decided what part of my job was to decide what work with marketing to make sure that we were selecting the right places to put our messaging. And we decided also what that message would be, what specific vendors we would work with. So part of my job was to select those vendors. And I had a team, and my team would go and work with the specific vendors in specific areas. So some of my team was focused on women, some of my team was focused on early in career, some of them were focused on African American, some of them were focused on working with Hispanic, Latinx audiences. These organizations had different platforms, they had podcasts, they had events, and that sort of thing. And then we would decide, along with marketing, work together on how we would show up. Let's say there was a job conference that we were attending. I have been involved in selecting lots of different things, from whether it's the banners that are going to be up there, the how the look of a booth is going to be, what kind of giveaways we would have, these kinds of things. So there is a lot involved in employer branding. And generally, it doesn't happen just in HR alone. It's a collaboration between HR and marketing to really make it effective.
It sounds like human resources can be a very colorful role, and there are many different paths and opportunities within this. So I can totally see how this could be attractive as a potential career path for someone. So now, after years of doing this, you are a career coach. Is that right, Griselle?
Yes. Yes.
So what's the typical problems your clients approach you with?
A lot of times they're just unhappy in their careers. A lot of times they're just afraid of making a change. There's a lot of considerations for someone. For example, financial responsibilities. Sometimes they have families. Other times they're thinking about taking an opportunity, but maybe it's in another location that requires them to move. Sometimes people are concerned that they're just not ready or not good enough. I had a client recently that I spoke to last week, and her concern was that she just basically wouldn't speak up. She basically remained quiet. She just worked, and she had let some time pass, and she was hoping that she would get noticed. And I advised her that she just really needed to speak up. So a lot of times is that people don't ask. And that is one of the things I like to say is really important. There's a variety of different things that people come with. Sometimes it's negative self-thought that needs to be addressed, because until you stop playing those things in your mind that tell you that you can't do it, and you replace them with things that tell you that you can, then sometimes it's very difficult to make that change. Sometimes you just have to do it afraid. You just have to take the leap and you have to just jump. Because what I found is that when you're afraid and you finally do something, you realize that it wasn't as scary as you thought it was going to be. So sometimes it's just a matter of getting yourself into the position of saying, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and take a chance.
I'm a big advocate of this myself, and I do believe that as humans we're very adaptable, and when we expand our limits, we inevitably grow into those new limits. I mean, it takes a bit of pressure in the beginning, just like in the gym when you lift in heavier weights. In the beginning it's harder, but eventually you grow into it and you get the hang of it. I like that point a lot.
Yeah, it becomes your new normal. What the things that you thought you couldn't do, when you give it a chance, when you try it, then that becomes your new normal. And every time you have to expect feeling awkward. That's just something you have to accept. Because when you take a step, you're not going to know everything. It's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to be clunky, and you're in a new level. You're going to start on the bottom. But once you get used to it, then you're going to be fine. But if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need to go to the next room and then learn from those people who are there. I think one thing that we forget as humans is that we think we have to have it perfect and we think we have to know it all. And we think that we can't ask a question or ask for help because that's going to make us look weak. But in fact, most people are happy to help. They welcome the opportunity to help. I think it's important not to let that get in the way. Just allow yourself to be uncomfortable sometimes.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
All right. When people come to you with these kind of problems, how do you help them? What is it that you do with them? So with this lady, you said that you trained her or you advised her just to speak up and to get out of her comfort zone. But how do you really make them grow and achieve what they want?
I think the first thing that I do with my clients is I look for alignment. It's super important to have your career goals aligned to your values. I do an exercise with my clients to have them find out what's important to them. What are the things that are of the most importance? There's tons of things out on the internet. You can go look for these, you can look at the values, but it really comes down to focusing on the top 3 values and then seeing if your career goals are aligned to those values, because that's what's going to give you the fire to keep working and to continue. Sometimes if your values are not aligned, then you might be working in a career that is completely at odds with you, and that kind of produces a lot of frustration and in some cases the misery that people feel. So, one of the first things that I do with my clients is to make sure that they are aligned to their values.
So what advice or tip would you give to those who are on this career development journey? How can they find out their values?
I think it takes a lot of looking in personally. I'll give you an example. So, for me, my values are freedom and truth. I really want to help people to be in the careers that they love. I want to see people be free, and I want to see people be happy, and I want to see people feel accomplished. I know how frustrating it can be when you are trying to have a career and just there's so many things that can happen. And you spend about 8 or 10 hours or sometimes 12 hours of your day at a job. So it's really important that you have the values aligned. And that's why I'm doing career coaching, because it aligns with that value of freedom and truth. And love, I think, is my third value of the top 3. And so it's really important first to look inside yourself and figure out what's really important to you. Because if I were doing a job as an accountant and what I really want to do is help people in their careers, then that would not be a good match, right? If you are someone who understands numbers and it's something that you feel like you're solving the piece of a puzzle and you're helping someone to better their lives by putting together a financial plan, then you should be an accountant. So I think it depends on really what is important to that person and what natural talents or things that they're naturally gravitate towards.
Thank you for sharing that about the self-reflection and your values as well. The truth will set you free, right? As the Bible
Indeed.
says. And it's so true, like knowing yourself and having that self-knowledge, it will move you closer to the self-actualization where you can actually fulfill your purpose in a way, I would say.
And I think that's what a lot of people want. I think a lot of people want to have purpose. I think a lot of people want to know that their time here on earth means something, that they're contributing something to society, that somehow what they do makes a difference. And sometimes people will think that something they do might not be that important. But sometimes it's the small things that someone does that if you do it well, it gives you peace. For example, I knew this lady, wonderful lady, very lovely lady, had always had a smile on her face and so on. And her job was to clean houses. So you would think to her it was making an impact, it was making something beautiful out of a mess. To her, it was contributing to the well being of a family, it was creating something beautiful. So, because she had that outlook and that attitude, she was doing the right thing. Because at the end of the day, she felt like she had made a difference in somebody else's family. It wasn't just about cleaning the house, it was about giving a wonderful, peaceful place where this family could enjoy and could be together and share.
It's really nice.
She had a much bigger picture of what it was. So it doesn't really matter what you do as long as what you do because you love it, because you have passion for it, because you see the purpose in it, and it's your contribution to other people.
I would even go as far as having this career development path is also important to increase your influence. If you really want to make a bigger impact, obviously the more powerful you are or the more control you have over an organization's development, the bigger impact you can make. And if you have that career development path laid out and you know where you're going, you know how to get there, and you'll know how to make a greater positive impact if that's what you aspire to do.
Yes, I think so. I have some family members that are in the medical field. And so every day they make a big impact. And every day they are changing people's lives. And sometimes it doesn't have to necessarily be something like in the medical field where you could see there's a clear path or difference. But sometimes even just someone like a personal trainer, right? You might think, oh, I'm just helping somebody to get in shape. That getting in shape can give them the confidence to go for the job that they wanted. That can give them the confidence to have the relationship that they wanted, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where I think like coaching as a form is a wonderful profession to be in because you really get to make an impact. And sometimes you want to be able to see the fruits of, like you said, to be able to see the impact that you're able to make.
Yes, I 100% agree. And that's why I also do this podcast and run this channel to share this positive impact and to grow the positive impact of coaching and personal professional development so that people can really be who they want to be and have the influence, have the results that they aspire to do. So what's the greatest transformation that you have witnessed in your coaching career?
Wow, that's a good question. I had a client, she was in a scientific job and it was very specific. She worked on instruments that measured water and she had been in it for a long time and she just couldn't see how this thing that she was doing, like she felt like she was stuck. And I think that's the greatest thing. The greatest thing is when you're working with someone and all of a sudden, like they have this aha moment and they realize that they have the opportunity to do something different. I think that is like the best thing in the planet. When I'm able to see that in a client, that makes my heart like super happy because I can see that now they feel like they are empowered and they can go ahead and do something else. In her case, it was that she felt stuck in this career, but she really liked natural foods and health and all of these kinds of things. So we got into a conversation about it, and she was able to take the skills that she had in this scientific area and apply them to working with a nutraceutical company. And so it was a new path for her.
That's a fantastic transition. And how is she doing now, if it's no secret?
She was able to combine her passion with her skills. And so she is in a lot happier place. I would say she's doing a whole lot better.
That's fantastic what career coaching can do for you. So if people would like to improve their careers, improve their personal life through having a more meaningful, more fulfilling career, where can they find you, Griselle?
It's my website is www.growingalifecoaching.com. And there's information there. I have a free guide. And just also, one more thing is that anytime someone works with me, I also give a portion of the proceeds to a charity that I support.
Oh, wow. And which charity is it?
I support a charity that works against human trafficking. The name of the charity is called SELAH Freedom. And that organization has recently gotten an award for being a top charity. They have a thrift store that supports the ladies. They work with the police department, with the police chief, to whenever the police do a raid on human trafficking, they are able to take in some of these ladies. They give them a place to live, they train them, give them life skills, they give them work skills, and give them the opportunity to move into a new life. They're also very involved in fundraising, working with prominent people to bring visibility to the problem of human trafficking and also to get more funding for these programs. There is a charity navigator. If you go online, you will find it and you can see how the charity scores. And if any charity that scores above an 80 is doing a really good job, and SELAH Freedom is one of those. So I researched a lot of different organizations and I decided that because they had been recognized and because they have a high score in the way they handle the funds and how much of those funds actually go to the programs to help people, that's why I decided to support SELAH Freedom.
Wow, that's really fantastic. So people don't only get to improve their personal and professional lives, but they also help victims of human trafficking if they get to work with you. I think that's a fantastic deal. So I highly recommend you reach out to Griselle for career coaching if you're in the market to change your careers, to level up, to create your career development path. If you want to map that out, Griselle can definitely help you with that. We'll put her links below in the description of the video and in the comments, so you'll be able to find her and reach out to her, download her free guide, and have an informal conversation to see if you're the right. Thank you for all the valuable insight and advice you have provided us, Griselle, and thank you for joining us on the show as well. We'll put the link to SELAH Freedom as well in the description. So if anyone wants to support this charity that is fighting against human trafficking, they can do so as well independently. And we look forward to seeing you on the following show. If you found this valuable, please subscribe to our channel and keep in touch with us. Thank you, everyone, and bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.